The results were out before finals. I spent weeks tutoring my roommate, Maisie Thorne, for free. She was a scholarship student from a rough background, and I wanted to help her pass. But as soon as the grades posted, Maisie dragged me on the university's anonymous confession wall. My roommate pretended to tutor me just to feed me almond muffins. She knew I was allergic to. I spent finals week in the and lost my merit scholarship, while she took the top spot. I'm a first-gen student on financial aid. This scholarship was my only way out. Now it's gone. What do I do? She posted photos of herself within 4 drip. In a clinic for 3 days. The campus exploded in a split second. Didn't take long for the internet sleuths to do their thing. My identity was leaked. Within hours, dozens of emails flooded the dean's office. Angry students demanded my grades be voided, my scholarship handed to Maisie, and that I pay her medical bills. The administration couldn't handle the heat, citing malicious academic competition. They put me on probation and stripped me of all my honors. I wasn't even angry. I just thought it was hilarious. Maisie claimed she was stuck in a clinic for 3 days with a life-threatening allergy. But I had seen the hero's drone shots from the Electric Forest Music Festival. She was front and center in the crowd, smiling like she didn't have a care in the world. There were drone photos for all 3 days of the festival, and Maisie Thorne was in every single one of them. The grades are live. What did you guys get? I was studying in the library when the whispers started. I pulled up the portal on my phone. I was ranked first in the entire sophomore class. My roommate Maisie was at the bottom of the list. There were no scores next to her name. Every single box was marked absent. She hadn't shown up for a single exam during the 3-day finals period. I put my phone down, but the girl at the next table gasped. Check the confession wall. This is insane. A girl poisoned her roommate with an allergen just to steal her scholarship. How can someone be that twisted? Poisoned allergy. My heart skipped a beat. I had spent the last month helping Maisie prep for these exact exams. She had vanished for 3 days. When she finally slunk back into the dorm, I had asked if she was okay. She just sent me a crying emoji and a text, saying she had a massive allergic reaction and was stuck on in 4 drip. Open the confession wall. The post was already trending. Maisie had added a lot of juicy details to keep the mob interested. Her family is loaded. Her monthly allowance is triple my entire budget. I don't know why she was so desperate to take my scholarship too. I'm not a genius. I worked my ass off in a rural high school just to get here. She's always been at the top. So I was actually happy when she offered to help me. She went home for the weekend and ordered me food, so I wouldn't go hungry. I was so grateful. Then I ended up in the hospital that same night. She's the only person in this dorm who knows. I have a lethal almond allergy. I didn't eat anything else that day, only the food she gave me. I'm so helpless. If she wanted the scholarship, I would have stepped aside. Why did she have to put me in the hospital? I can't even afford the medical bills now. I read every word. There was no doubt Maisie was talking about me. I did know about her allergy, but the muffins I ordered were plain milk bread rolls. There wasn't a trace of almond in them. In fact, I was so paranoid about cross-contamination that I chose a bakery that didn't even use nuts in their kitchen. The comments were brutal. Thousands of people were calling for my head. It's slow advance freshman year. She's a total snake for doing this to a scholarship kid. Make her apologize publicly. Everyone email the dean. Get her expelled, and make her pay Maisie back. I felt a cold chill run down my spine. Before I could even process the hate, my phone buzzed. It was the administration office. Sloan Vance, we've received a massive number of reports regarding malicious competition and physical harm to a student. Get down to the dean's office now. I took a deep breath and gripped my phone. I'll be there. The dean and 3 board members were waiting for me. The dean didn't waste any time. Sloan, we've made a preliminary decision. We are revoking your nomination for the National Honor Society and suspending your scholarship. It's not that we don't want to believe you, but the public outcry is too loud. We're doing this for your own safety. For my safety. They were stripping away the honors I'd worked years for. They were freezing the scholarship I earned with my own sweat. They weren't even giving me a chance to speak. I clenched my fists and looked the dean in the eye. First of all, I had no reason to sabotage Maisie. Her GPA isn't even close to the top. She wasn't my competition. The food I sent her was nut-free. That bakery doesn't even have almonds on the premises. I don't know why she had a reaction, but it had nothing to do with me. I pulled out my phone and showed them the DoorDash receipt. Clearly listed plain milk, bread, nut-free. Then I showed them last year's transcripts. Maisie was barely scraping by with the coverage. The scholarship was a pipe dream for her anyway. The board members looked at each other, clearly uncomfortable. I let out a dry laugh. I have proof of my innocence. What does Maisie have besides a clinic receipt? Does being on financial aid give her a free pass to ruin my life? Without a single shred of evidence, they were silent. I put my phone away and stood up straight. I don't accept this decision, Dean. I'm not paying the price for a crime I didn't commit. I'm going to find the truth myself. I didn't wait for them to dismiss me. I walked out of that office with my head held high. I wasn't just talking big. I already knew exactly how to rip Maisie's lie apart. When I stepped into the hallway, I saw a familiar figure. It was Maisie. The second she saw me, her face went pale. She squeezed out a few tears and hid behind the girl next to her. She acted like I was about to hit her. Her friend Phoebe glared at me while she held Maisie's hand.
Flown.
You already ruined her finals. Haven't you done enough? You're a disgrace to this school. You're lucky they didn't kick you out yet. Don't worry, Maisie. The whole class has your back. Maisie let a couple of tears fall. She grabbed Phoebe's sleeve like a frightened child. Thank you, Phoebe. I don't know what I'd do without you guys. I looked at her fake trembling lip and smiled. Maisie, if you're so sure I poisoned you, why didn't you file an official report? Why only post anonymously on the confession wall? Are you scared of what a real investigation might find? A flicker of panic crossed her face. She knew as well as I did that a real police report would require actual medical proof. But she recovered quickly, her voice wobbling blown. Your family is powerful. Everyone knows you have connections. I'm just a girl from a trailer park. I was too scared to go to the police. Please just leave me alone. Other students in the hall started gathering around us, forming a human shield in front of Maisie. You're such a bitch. Leave her alone. She's a monster. No remorse at all. Pay her back. Give her the money you stole. Their faces were red with self-righteous fury. I stood there catching the tiny, triumphant smirk Maisie gave me when she thought no one was looking. I smiled back. I wondered if she'd still be smiling when the world found out what she really was. The hate didn't stop. Every day the confession wall was flooded with the same message. Sloan Vance, pay up. Stop hiding and apologize. Give the scholarship to someone who actually deserves it. The school decided to hold a public disciplinary hearing in a week to resolve the issue fairly. As soon as she heard the news, Maisie started a TikTok live. She sat in front of the camera with puffy eyes, her voice cracking. Being poor has always been hard, but I never complained. I just wanted an education. I worked so hard to get into this university, and I never expected someone to be so cruel. I'll do my best at the hearing to get justice. Thank you to everyone who supported me. The comments were a dumpster fire of support. Expel the rich bitch.
No one should get away with this.
Sending you a universe gift. Stay strong and keep studying. The screen filled with expensive digital gifts. Maisie's eyes sparkled every time a new donation popped up. She couldn't stop thanking people for the money. Meanwhile, my social media handles were leaked. Thousands of strangers swarmed my accounts with the most disgusting comments. This is basically attempted murder, Maisie said. She was covered in hives and couldn't even breathe. Someone should slip something into this bitch's drink and see how she likes it. I hope she gets humiliated at the hearing and kicked out. People were photoshopping my face onto gravestones. A headline even made it to the local news. University student sabotages roommate over scholarship money. Walking to class was like walking through a gauntlet of whispers. Is that her? The girl who poisoned her roommate? Why is she still allowed on campus? Just wait until the hearing. She's going to get shredded. In the dining hall, someone intentionally bumped into me, spilling my tray. Then they dropped a handful of dead flies onto my food. Now you know what it feels like to have your food messed with. I didn't say a word. I just dumped the tray and went back to my dorm. I opened my laptop and went straight to the official Twitter account of a major music festival. Electric Forest drone photos are live. Check out our 1,000+ crowd shots and find yourself. I had stumbled across this post a few days ago. I'd only glanced at it, but one photo had caught my eye. A girl in the front row looked exactly like Maisie. She even had the same tiny mole on her neck. He probably never realized that. The festival used Harry's drones for marketing every single day. And the festival happened to be on the exact 3 days of our finals. I spent hours meticulously going through every folder. There she was all 3 days. Every single photo showed her front and center. She was wearing different festival outfits. Short skirts, glitter, the whole 9 yards. She was laughing, dancing, and looking perfectly healthy. There wasn't a single hive on her skin. I had the evidence, but I didn't post it yet. It wasn't enough. She could claim the photos were edited. I needed something that would bury her for good. I let the mob keep screaming. The louder they got, the harder she would fall. Finally, 3 days before the hearing, I had everything I needed. I looked at the files on my computer and laughed. Maisie Thorne, your double life is even more pathetic than I thought. I called the dean's office. I'll be at the hearing tomorrow. Make sure the big screen in the auditorium is working. The night before the hearing, the campus was practically buzzing with a bloodthirsty kind of electricity. You could feel it in the air, thick and humid, like the pressure drop before a hurricane. I sat alone in my dorm room. Maisie's bed across from mine stripped bare.
She had
Moved into Phoebe's room to feel safe from her attacker. Good. Her absence gave me the silence I needed. The glow of my laptop screen illuminated my face. On the screen was a neat, meticulously organized folder named Exhibits. It contained high-resolution images, sworn emails, time-stamped metadata, financial public records, and screen recordings. Every file was a nail in Maisie Thorne's coffin. My phone buzzed. Another notification. A death threat from a burner account on Instagram. Hope you choke at the hearing tomorrow, murder. I swiped it away, my pulse dead calm. They thought I was drowning in fear. They thought I was a helpless, broke scholarship kid who would fold under the weight of a coordinated smear campaign. But they had severely miscalculated. Growing up with nothing teaches you one very important survival skill: how to fight with whatever you have. And right now, what I had was the absolute, undeniable truth. I transferred the folder to a heavy metal USB drive, ejected it safely, and dropped it into my backpack. Tomorrow, the confession wall wouldn't just be updated. It was going to be burned to the ground. The disciplinary hearing was held in the university's main auditorium, a venue usually reserved for guest lectures and graduation ceremonies. The administration had clearly underestimated the circus they had allowed to develop. By the time I arrived at 9 a.m., the massive hall was packed to the fire code limit. Students lined the aisles. Some were live streaming on their
phones.
When I walked through the double doors, a hush fell over the room, followed immediately by a low, collective hiss. Bitch. Someone coughed into their hand as I walked down the center aisle. Hope you packed your bags. A guy in a frat hoodie sneered, intentionally, sticking his leg out to trip me. I simply stepped over it, keeping my eyes locked on the stage. At the front, a long oak table had been set up for the disciplinary panel.
Dean
Sloan, 2 associate deans, and the head of campus security sat behind it, looking grim and deeply uncomfortable. To the left was the plaintiff's table. Maisie was already there. She looked like a masterpiece of fabricated suffering. She was wearing a baggy, faded, oversized sweater that made her look frail.
Her hair was pulled into a
messy, unwashed bun. She wore no makeup, save for what looked like a deliberate dusting of pale powder to make her seem sickly, and she was clutching a crumpled tissue. Beside her sat Phoebe, rubbing her back with exaggerated sympathy. I took my seat at the empty table on the right. No lawyer, no friends. Just me, my backpack, and a standard-issue university laptop I had requested from the library. Dean Harrison cleared his throat, adjusting his microphone.
The feedback whined
sharply, cutting through the murmurs of the crowd. Settle down. Everyone, please settle down, the dean ordered, his voice echoing. We are here today to address the severe allegations brought against sophomore Sloan Vance by her roommate, Maisie Thorne. The charges include malicious academic sabotage, severe violation of the University Code of Conduct, and reckless endangerment of a fellow student's life. The dean looked at me over his reading glasses. Miss Vance, the university has offered you the option to quietly withdraw and surrender your scholarship funds to cover Miss Thorne's medical expenses. You refused. I did, I said, my voice projecting clearly into my microphone, because I don't pay extortion fees. A gasp rippled through the auditorium. Phoebe slammed her hands on her table. Extortion. She almost died because of you. Order, the dean barked. Miss Thorne, you may present your statement. Maisie stood up slowly, her knees visibly trembling. It was an Oscar-worthy performance. She gripped the edges of the podium, looking out at the sea of students who were practically frothing at the mouth to defend her. I never wanted this to be public, Maisie began, her voice a fragile whisper that forced the entire room to lean in. I just wanted to study. I come from a trailer park in Nevada. I don't have a trust fund. I don't have powerful parents. All I had was my brain and my work ethic. She wiped a tear that managed to escape her eye. Sloan was failing. I spent weeks helping her. I thought we were friends. But when finals week came, she saw that I was going to beat her for the merit scholarship.
I told her about my
Lethal almond allergy in confidence. The next day, she brought me a muffin.
I
Ate it, and within minutes, my throat closed up. I couldn't breathe.
thought I
Was going to die on the floor of our dorm. Murmurs of absolute horror swept the crowd. I leaned back in my chair, watching her. I was rushed to a clinic. I spent 3 days on an 4 drip, fighting for my
life.
Because of that, I missed all my finals. I lost the scholarship. And Sloane took the top spot. Maisie let out a pathetic, broken sob. I don't want vengeance. I just want my life back. I want the scholarship I earned, and I want to feel safe on my own campus. She collapsed back into her chair. The auditorium erupted into applause. Some people were standing. Phoebe was glaring at me like she wanted to vault over the table and strangle me. Dean Harrison let the applause die down before turning his heavy gaze to me. Miss Vance, the evidence against you is substantial. We have Miss Thorne's medical receipts, the timeline of your food delivery, and the undeniable fact that she missed her exams while you succeeded. What possible defense do you have? I unzipped my backpack, pulled out my laptop, and plugged in the USB drive. Then I reached for the HDMI cable resting on the table and plugged it into my machine. The massive projector screen behind the panel flickered, mirroring my desktop. Dean Harrison, I said, my voice devoid of any emotion. May I have the floor? Proceed. But I warn you, we will not tolerate slander. I don't need slander, I said, standing up. I just need basic reading comprehension. I clicked the first file. An image filled the massive screen. It was a receipt from DoorDash, blown up to 10 feet tall. Maisie claims I fed her an almond muffin. I began, pacing slowly in front of my table. This is the exact receipt from the order I placed on the day in question. As you can see, I ordered from a place called the Daily Crumb.
The
item is listed as plain milk bread roll. There is no muffin. She swapped the food. Phoebe yelled from the other table. She put an almond muffin in the bag. I anticipated that argument. I said calmly. I clicked to the next slide.
It
was an official letterhead from the Daily Crumb, complete with a notarized signature. This is an affidavit from Arthur Pendleton, the owner of the bakery. I visited him 2 days ago. The Daily Crumb is a certified nut-free facility. They do not carry almonds. They do not bake with almonds. In fact, their lease strictly forbids the presence of nuts on the premises due to the owner's own severe allergies. It is physically impossible for an almond product to have come from that bag. The crowd went completely silent. The angry murmurs died in their throats. Maisie shifted in her seat. It must have been cross-contamination from somewhere else. Or she rubbed almond oil on it. I don't know how she did it, but I went into anaphylaxis.
right.
The anaphylaxis, I said, nodding as if I agreed with her. Which brings us to the medical evidence. I clicked the screen again. A scanned copy of Maisie's clinic receipt appeared. It was the same one she had posted on the confession wall, detailing a 3-day stay at Pineview Urgent Care, with charges for epinephrine, for fluids, and a
Bed.
total cost, $4,200. This is the receipt Maisie submitted to the confession wall and to the dean's office to excuse her absence from finals, I said. It looks very official.
It
even has a doctor's signature at the bottom. Dr. Eris Thorne. I paused, letting the name hang in the air. Now, I found it a little odd that her doctor shared her last name. So I called Pineview Urgent Care. Actually, I didn't just call them. I drove there. I clicked the next slide. It was an email from the hospital administrator at Pineview Urgent Care, with the school administration CC'd. Dean Harrison, if you check your inbox, you received this email this morning. Pineview Urgent Care has no record of a Maisie Thorne being admitted last week. Furthermore, they do not offer multi-day inpatient care. They are a walk-in clinic that closes at 8 p.m. And most interestingly, the signature at the bottom belongs to an Eris Thorne, a pediatrician who retired in 2018.
who, according to
Public records, happens to be Maisie's grandfather. A collective gasp sucked the oxygen out of the room. The dean's eyes widened.
he
Scrambled to open his laptop, his fingers aggressively typing to check his email. Maisie's pale face suddenly flushed a violent shade of red. She's lying.
she
Hacked my records. My grandfather just consulted on the case. Urgent care clinics don't use retired pediatricians for emergency anaphylaxis. Consults Maisie, I said, my voice dropping to a freezing register. You bought a fake receipt template off Etsy, filled it in with your grandfather's old signature stamp, and submitted it to the university as a forged medical
document.
That is a severe accusation, Miss Vance, the head of security rumbled, staring at the screen. It's not an accusation. It's a demonstrable fact, I replied. But I know what you're all thinking. If she wasn't in the hospital for 3 days during finals, where was she? I looked directly at Maisie. Her eyes were wide, the pupils dilated with pure, unadulterated panic. The sickly sweet victim persona was melting off her face, like wax. She subtly pushed her chair back, as if she were contemplating bolting for the doors. Don't leave yet, Maisie, I said into the mic. We're just getting to the fun part. I minimized the document folder and opened a folder simply titled electric_forest_drone. For those who don't know, I addressed the auditorium, the Electric Forest Music Festival took place from Wednesday to Friday last week, the exact 3 days of our sophomore final exams. I hit play on a video file. The massive screen filled with sweeping, 4K aerial drone footage of a massive outdoor music festival. Bass-heavy EDM music played softly through the projector speakers. Lasers cut through the night sky. Thousands of people jumped in unison. The festival organizers upload high-res promotional drone shots every day to their social media. But they also keep an open-source database of the raw, uncompressed 4K footage for promotional partners. I emailed them claiming to be from the university's journalism department doing a piece on student life, and they granted me access to the archive. I paused the video. I zoomed in, and in, and in. The resolution was staggering. The image punched through the crowd, focusing on the VIP railing at the very front of the main stage. There, clinging to the rail, wearing a neon-sequined halter top, glitter smeared across her cheekbones, and holding a massive plastic cup of beer, was Maisie
Thorne.
The auditorium erupted. It wasn't an eruption of support. It was an explosion of shock, betrayal, and outrage. Wait, let's check the timestamps, I yelled over the noise, advancing the
slide.
Here is Maisie at 2:15 p.m. on Wednesday, the exact time of our organic chemistry final. Here she is at 11 a.m. on Thursday, riding on some guy's shoulders during the exact window of our macroeconomics exam. She looks remarkably healthy for someone whose throat has supposedly closed up. That's Photoshop, Maisie shrieked, her voice cracking into a hysterical pitch. She edited my face onto someone else. This is defamation. Is it? I asked. I clicked to the next slide. It was a side-by-side comparison. On the left was the drone shot of Maisie at the festival, zooming in on her wrist. She was wearing a very specific, handmade, beaded bracelet with the letters MT and a tiny silver star charm. On the right was a screenshot from a TikTok live Maisie had hosted just yesterday, the one where she cried to her followers about her hospital bills. In the TikTok screenshot, she was wearing the exact same custom bracelet. AI and Photoshop are good, Maisie, but they don't hallucinate your custom Etsy jewelry in 4K resolution on 3 consecutive days of raw video files secured directly from the festival server. I looked at the disciplinary panel. Dean Harrison looked like he was about to have a stroke. The associate deans were staring at Maisie with absolute disgust. Phoebe, who had been holding Maisie's hand just 10 minutes ago, slowly let go. She pushed her chair a few inches away, staring at her roommate as if she were a stranger. Maisie, what is she talking about? You sent me a picture of your 4. Oh, the 4 picture? I interrupted, snapping my fingers. I almost forgot. I clicked to the next slide. It showed the picture Maisie had posted of her arm, with an 4 needle in it. Then, I overlaid a reverse Google image search result. This photo was taken from a stock image site. If you look at the bottom right corner, you can still see the faint, poorly cropped watermark of Getty Images. You didn't even pay for the premium version to remove the watermark. The silence in the room was now deafening. The kind of silence that precedes a total collapse. Maisie Thorne didn't miss her finals because I poisoned her, I said, my voice echoing off the walls. Maisie Thorne realized she was going to fail her finals, lose her chance at a decent GPA, and get exposed as a fraud. So she faked a medical emergency, skipped town to go to a rave, and tried to frame me to secure an academic waiver. I stared down the mob that had been threatening my life for a week. She used your empathy. She weaponized your sense of justice. She made you threaten a first-generation scholarship student so she could go drop Molly at a dubstep concert. A guy in the 3rd row stood up. It was the same guy in the frat hoodie who had tried to trip me. "You absolute sociopath," he yelled at Maisie. Suddenly, the whole room turned on her. The vitriol that had been aimed at me shifted course in a violent, immediate wave. People were shouting, swearing, demanding she be expelled right then and there. "Quiet! Quiet in this hall!" Dean Harrison roared, banging his fist on the table. Maisie was hyperventilating. Real tears, born of absolute terror, streamed down her face. "Dean Harrison, please." I panicked. I was failing. "I didn't mean for it to go this far." "You didn't mean for it to go this far?" I asked, cutting through her sob story. "That brings me to my final exhibit." "Dean Harrison," I said, my voice turning deadly serious. "Faking an illness to skip a test is an academic violation. But what Maisie did next is a federal crime." I clicked the screen. The projection shifted to Maisie's GoFundMe page, which she had linked to her TikTok account. The total raised read $14,500. Maisie has spent the last week broadcasting her fabricated tragedy to the internet. She claimed she was a destitute student from a Nevada trailer park who needed help paying her $4,200 urgent care bill and living expenses. I brought up a new document. It was a property tax public record. This is a public property deed for a $3.2 million home in Orange County, California. The owners are Richard and Eris Thorne, Maisie's parents. Her father is a corporate litigator. Her mother is an architect. Maisie doesn't get financial aid. She drives a 2023 Audi Q5 that is currently parked in the faculty garage because she pays for a premium parking pass. I looked out at the students, many of whom had donated their meager part-time job earnings to her. Maisie solicited over $14,000 from students and strangers on the internet across state lines, under the false pretense of a fabricated medical emergency. That is the textbook definition of wire fraud. It's a felony. Maisie let out a choked, guttural sound. She covered her face with her hands, curling into a ball in her chair. I looked over at the head of campus security. "Officer, considering the amount of money extorted, I believe this exceeds the university's internal disciplinary purview. Have the local police been notified?" Before the security chief could answer, the double doors at the back of the auditorium opened. 2 uniformed city police officers walked in. The university had requested their presence as a precaution because the initial accusation was attempted murder via poisoning. But the officers weren't looking at me. They had been standing in the vestibule, listening to the entire presentation through the PA system. They walked straight down the aisle toward Maisie's table. "Maisie Thorne," the lead officer said, his hand resting casually on his utility belt. "We're going to need you to step outside with us. We need to have a conversation about financial fraud and filing a false police report." Maisie looked up, her face a mask of absolute horror. She reached out for her friend. Phoebe, please call my dad. Tell him I need him." Phoebe stood up, grabbed her backpack, and looked down at Maisie with an expression of pure revulsion. "Call him yourself, you psycho," she spat before turning and speed walking away from the table, disappearing into the crowd. The officers gently but firmly grasped Maisie by the arms, pulling her up from the chair. As they led her down the aisle, the auditorium, which had been calling for my head just an hour ago, erupted into jeers and boos aimed directly at her. "You what's its heckle?" I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I just felt a cold, deep satisfaction settle into my bones. I turned back to the disciplinary panel. The 3 deans looked completely shell-shocked. "Dean Harrison," I said, snapping them out of their stupor, "I believe we have some administrative housekeeping to do." The dean swallowed hard, wiping a sheen of sweat from his forehead. "Miss Vance, the university, we formally apologize. The charges against you are immediately dismissed." "That's a start," I said, resting my hands on the podium. "But it's not enough. You suspended my scholarship without an investigation. You stripped my National Honor Society nomination based on an anonymous internet post. You allowed me to be subjected to extreme harassment and threats of violence on this campus, without lifting a finger to protect me." I leaned in, staring the dean directly in the eyes. "I want my scholarship reinstated immediately. I want my Honor Society nomination restored. I want a public, written apology from the administration, emailed to the entire student body by 5 p.m. today, clearing my name completely. And considering the profound emotional distress and hostile environment the university fostered through its negligence." I paused, letting the implication hang. "I expect my tuition for the remaining 2 years of my degree to be fully covered by the university's discretionary endowment fund. Otherwise, the lawsuit my pro bono lawyers will file against this institution for defamation and negligence will make the tuition look like pocket change. The dean opened his mouth to argue, but the head of security subtly put a hand on his arm, shaking his head. The university had messed up monumentally. They knew it. I knew it. We will draw up the paperwork this afternoon, Miss Vance, the dean conceded, his voice defeated. Thank you, I said. I calmly unplugged my USB drive, closed my laptop, and packed my backpack. I walked down the center aisle of the auditorium. This time no one coughed.
No.
One tried to trip me. The crowd parted for me like the Red Sea, watching me in absolute, stunned silence. The fallout was swift and brutal. By sunset, the dean's apology email hit every student's inbox. The confession wall was taken down completely by the IT department. Maisie didn't return to the dorm. She was booked on charges of wire fraud and grand theft by deception. Her powerful father tried to sweep it under the rug, but because the GoFundMe crossed state lines and the TikTok Live was broadcast, nationally, federal prosecutors took an interest. She was expelled immediately. The rumor was she was facing serious jail time, and her family had frozen her accounts. The internet sleuths who had photoshopped my face onto gravestones spent the next week frantically deleting their digital footprints, terrified I would sue them for libel. I didn't bother. They weren't worth my time. A month later, the final official class rankings were updated. I sat in the library looking at my phone. The campus was quiet, peaceful.
The
sunlight filtered through the stained glass windows, warming the wooden desk. I pulled up the portal. Rank 1, Sloan Vance. GPA, 4.0. My scholarship was secured. My tuition was paid for. My future was mine again. I smiled, locked my phone, and opened my textbook. I had studying to do. After all, maintaining the top spot takes a lot of hard work. And I've never been afraid of hard work.